Hi everyone, this is Grace, and today I'll be walking you through how I made this beginner winter set. So let's go. Now, if you haven't checked it out already, this is actually brain fart, one of my classes that I offer right now. The link should be in the description and in the comments section of this video. It is one of my classic beginner sets, which for the most part, all have one shape, or at least my newer classes all have one shape. A lot of them are circles. I have 4 circle beginner classes. This is one of them. And hands down, one of my favorite. I mean, I can't really pick a favorite because they're all just so cute. I have this one and Christmas and barnyard animals and oh my gosh, what's the third one? Oh, Halloween. Duh. That was the first circle one I did. So go check those out. I do plan on doing more circle classes in 2024. Pretty stoked about that. This set here, we are rocking 4 colors technically, but it is predominantly just white and blue. You'll see that there's black and orange, just tiny bits of accents just to make some of the things look a little more realistic, like the eyes and the nose beak situation stuff. So obviously, this theme here is winter. I get a lot of requests to do something other than Christmas at Christmas time, which I totally understand. I personally just love Christmas and all things Christmas, but this is my first winter class and I think first winter set as well. Crazy, right? And I just couldn't be happier with it. If I remember correctly, did I do 9 designs? I'm pretty sure I did 9. All on a circle. And when you think about the fact that it's basically just white and blue, it's pretty impressive. This first one here is the winter scene. We just did a little bit of classic, or at least for me, classic crackle on the bottom. And then these little wet on wet trees. If you've done or seen the Christmas class, you'll notice that the technique here with the trees is very much a nod to the tree in that class, but we just switched up the design a little bit, and you'd be amazed how it switches up the effect. So added some polka dots just for a little snow situation. You could also sprinkle this with white non-prize, but since this is a beginner class, with all my beginner classes, I really work to make sure that I'm only adding extra things that really make a difference. I mean, I use that approach with all my classes, but something like the white non-prize, like, yes, it would have been really cute with that, but is it necessary? No, because can we just do the polka dots with the icing? Absolutely. So that is what I opted to do, clearly. And next up, I'm trying to remember which one this is. I think this is the polar bear. Yeah, probably. So if you follow me on Instagram, you may or may not know that I'm actually kind of obsessed with polar bears. It all started with getting a little stuffed polar bear during the panorama in 2020, and it just kind of went downhill from there. Now I'm just like genuinely obsessed with polar bears. So there's that. I had to do a little polar bear for this set, and he's so cute. He, she, whatever. Now a couple of things here. So simple white base. The eyes there, I added some highlights to the eyes just for a little extra something, something, but definitely not necessary. You could just do them black. And then the little ears here definitely make it. Polar bears actually do have tiny little round ears, which it's one of the reasons why I just think they're so cute. That and bear butts. Have you ever seen like a polar bear butt? Their tiny little tails is just all so cute. Okay. I opted for kind of a triangular nose situation here. Another way to do it is to do like a big oval. I did that a lot in the barnyard animal set, but I don't know. I just felt I felt inspired to do more of a triangle. You can see that I'm definitely like smoothing out the triangle though, so it's not quite so angular. Now, this set uses a thick flood for the most part. By the way, the terminology thick flood is totally mine. Go check out my video on consistencies if you have no idea what I mean. My thick flood just means like a thicker flood. I don't do seconds anymore. I only use the seconds method when I first started cookie decorating, and then I kind of came up with my own. The black and the orange in this set, I believe, are an extra thick flood. If you end up just basically making a flood, that's fine. But if it's extra thick, it'll kind of help you do some of the like the nose and the eye detail and all that good stuff. This color here, I believe, is just straight up royal blue. I love Chef Master. That's my newest gel obsession. Other than the sugar art gels, by the way, they're new, brand new, so good. But this is royal blue straight out of the bottle. Again, it's a beginner class, so I'm really trying to make sure that I am simplifying things as much as possible. I very rarely myself use a color straight out of the bottle. But with my beginner classes, I really try to make the colors more straightforward. So luckily, this is a perfectly pleasant blue straight out of the bottle. You can use Chef Master. You can use AmeriColor. Those are two great standard brands. This here, if I recall correctly, y'all, it's the end of the week here. Oh yeah. So the white actually uses two different bags. I do a big bag and I do a small bag. This is a trick that I've done in a few of my beginner classes, especially as a way to kind of have a little more control and fine detail when just doing one consistency. This here, by the way, is an adorable Igloo, and it's very much a nod to a winter set, Let It Snow, that I did in, I want to say like 2019. I don't think it was 2018, probably 2019. Just a really simple Igloo. You'll see it come to life here. So back to the white. So I do two different bags because this here we're flooding. And when you're flooding a large area, you need like a pretty decently sized tip on your bag. For flooding, I typically cut somewhere in the region of like 6 to 7 millimeters. For detail piping and like a piping consistency, I'll do more like 4 to 5 millimeters. When you're doing something like that snowflake, that's pretty hard to achieve that level of detail with a flood consistency and this size tip bag. Or is this the one? This is the smaller one. Yeah, okay. Sometimes it's hard to tell. I can tell that this is the smaller one because you can see that I knotted the top of it. I very rarely use that little icing to be able to knot my bag. I usually have to put a clip on top of it. But so this smaller bag here, we cut a smaller size tip, and the first of all, a smaller bag of icing just gives you more control over the icing, less icing in the bag. But then a smaller tip means that there's less icing coming out of the bag, and it gives you more control even over a pretty thin consistency. So this orange here again is that thick, extra thick flood, which gives it a little more definition for that cute little heart. When I did the original version of this, I think I added sanding sugar to this little entryway area, but obviously, again, trying not to use like extra stuff that's not necessary in a beginner set. So, right. So the smaller tip gives you more control. If your icing is really thin, you can cut an even smaller tip, which will give you even more control. Something you'll notice here as well is that I am not flooding all the way to the edge, and that's a really important thing to remember. Why do we do that, Grace? That is a great question. So the reason why is because a cookie like this appears flat, but it's not perfectly flat, right? So the way that you kind of combat that and help yourself out is to not flood all the way to the edge, because by not flooding all the way to the edge, you're giving the icing the opportunity, if it so chooses, which it most likely will, to slightly spread out without falling all the way over the edge. I think one of the like when I made the Halloween set for these circles, I did flood all the way to the edge and I very much regretted it. So this year I'm using the small white again. Now I will say this like small big bag technique. Um in my beginner sets, I've kind of waffled back and forth about whether it's really necessary. There was a time when I just kind of always did it because I thought everyone would appreciate having a little more control over their icing. And then I learned that just about as many people are just as thrilled to have fewer bags of icing that they have to prep. Um, so that's another reason why I do just like one bag for the majority of colors, even if you could get a little bit more control with a smaller bag, um, is that it's just less prep, y'all. Less prep, less time. We love that. Uh, so if these days, if I'm doing a smaller bag, it's really for good reason. I promise people. It's also generally okay with with these beginner sets that the details are a bit like chubbier, if we say. So this here is just the little hat rim. And it kind of spread out as you can see because obviously that's a flood consistency. And then we just let this dry for about 10 to 20 minutes and do that little crackle with the end of the scribe. What a cute little snowman. I also did a snowman in the Christmas set, but the snowman was much simpler. Just the face. This time I wanted to take it up a notch and add a hat. My cookie recipe, a lot of people ask, is what is with the black dots? It is vanilla bean paste. We love that for us. And with the white, I do add a little bit of white food coloring just to help the color pop. This here is what I'm calling the plaid. Now, there are a couple of designs in this set that are like winter adjacent. When I think about winter, I think about like cozy things, cozy knits and scarves and all that. So I added a plaid in here because it just gives me cozy vibes, okay? Whether it makes sense to you, that's okay. I'm also kind of obsessed with doing 2D or 3D, like 2-layer plaids like this. So this is actually 3 layers, technically, like 3 stages, because you have to let that orange crust before adding the white on top, and vice versa. You also have to let that base layer crust over before adding the orange. I really like the addition of the white on the white. Like, I think that looks really cool. The success with plaid, by the way, is to make sure that those clusters of 3 lines are really close to each other. If they're too far apart, it just looks like a mess of lines instead of plaid. I'm trying to remember what design this is. I'm not there yet, people. Oh, okay. This one I called the sweater technique. I don't know. Is that the appropriate name? Whatever. It's giving like Nordic sweater snowflake vibes. So this is my version of a wet on wet snowflake. I recognize that snowflakes have 6 prongs or whatever they're called. But I tried doing this with 6 and it was just way too cluttered. And especially at a beginner level like this, where the lines are kind of fat and like we don't have as much control over fine detail, 4 is good enough. I did the same thing on the beginner Christmas class and like it really annoyed some people. Same deal, peeps. Like doing 6 is hard. We did do 6 on the other snowflake, you know, pushing people to the next level here. Doesn't it? I don't know. Kind of gives you Nordic sweater. So I just called it the sweater because I already had the other one called the Snowflake. So like I couldn't call that a snowflake, but then if I called that the Snowflake, it would probably annoy people, which is fine. All right. Ooh, this is the penguin in that Let It Snow set I did, which by the way, you can find on my YouTube. It also included penguins. There is a really adorable chubby penguin cutter from Kaleidacuts. I don't know if it's actually called a chubby penguin, but it's chubby and it's adorable. And I've used it for that set. I used it for a class, I was going to say the last in-person class I did. No, the last in-person class I did in 2020, beginning of 2020. Kaleidacuts is KALEIDACUTS, in case you are curious. It's a cookie cutter company. So when I was editing, when I sat down to film the class portion for this, I realized, why did I do the blue part first? Like, it probably would have been so much easier to do the white first. I don't know where my brain was at. Now, one argument to doing the blue first is that inevitably when you flood something in sections like this, when you flood up next to it, the next section kind of is a little bit puffier and overtakes the one before it very easily, if that makes any sense. And in this case, definitely prefer the white to do that over the blue. Let that white crust for at least 30-ish minutes, and then give it some cute little eyes and a little beak with that orange. This orange, by the way, is muted with a tiny bit of the blue, I believe. The orange is, if you use orange straight out of the bottle, which I think this is what this is, by the way, any of the specifics that I'm just like not remembering, obviously it's all in the workbook for the class. The workbooks I have are very extensive. I have links for everything you need. I have alternatives for a lot of options as well. All that good stuff. I feel like this is the last cookie in the set. And by the way, I'm very loyal to Borderlands Bakery piping bags, which I'm using here. I know she has redesigned her bags, but I'm still working through all the other bags I had. And then this is not my normal scribe. This is the scribe that I use when I'm doing my beginner classes. Because this is the cheap scribe you can find on Amazon. And different scribes have different widths. And I just like to make sure that I'm using a scribe with the same width as what a lot of people are going to be buying for class. So this last one here, I just called this Snow. Because it's just like a little winter wonderland snow situation. These little doodads, snowflakes, I guess that's what they're called, have 6 little prong things. By the way, I'm sure someone in the comments is going to correct me. They're not called prongs. I just cannot think of like what they're called. I don't think I've ever known that actually. And obviously that was using the small white bag. And that, my friends, is it. I mean, look at the polar bear. No, so cute. Oh, okay. This set makes me so happy. I gotta say, my circle sets are some of my favorites. There are going to be more in 2024. I'm a poet and I didn't even know it. All right. As always, thank you for spending some time with me watching this video. I hope you learned a thing or two, and I hope even better that you might even try this yourself. Go check out the class. Link is in the description, and I love y'all. Have a sweet one.